Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever sat down for a game night and just thought, what if we took this really seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Like beyond needing more dice or maybe, better snacks. What if money were just no object?
Ah, okay. Yeah.
How much could you actually spend on a Dungeons & Dragons campaign?
That's the kind of question that sparks both fascination and maybe immediate alarm bells, right?
Exactly.
It makes you wonder what level of immersion you could possibly achieve, or perhaps what level of delightful madness you might unlock.
Delightful madness is the perfect phrase. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We got our hands on this absolutely wild piece from LitRPG Reads.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically an article by Amir Barakat titled, Inside the $500,000 D&D Campaign that definitely didn't get out of hand, probably.
Right, I saw that. It's quite the read, isn't it? Presented with this very specific, straight-faced absurdity. And our mission with this deep dive is to take you through the outrageous ideas, the surprising details, and the genuinely funny insights presented in this source material you shared with us.
Yeah, it's a look at what happens when boundless creativity meets a, seemingly limitless budget in the world of tabletop role-playing.
Exactly.
Think of this as a chill, playful exploration. We're focusing on the most amusing and memorable bits the article describes, so get comfortable. Because the numbers on this one, they get big and fast.
Right. So the source frames it in a way a lot of players can probably relate to. It supposedly began as just a casual homebrew game night.
Humble ambitions, right? Just slaying dragons,
not budgets. Yeah.
Exactly. But apparently that humble phase didn't last long. The idea struck that, pedestrian wasn't an option for true immersion.
Right. Why use a printed map when you could have, acoustics?
Acoustics, yes. The article highlights that the first step down this path of escalating costs was the demand for better acoustics.
For cleric pronouncements, apparently. Playing behind a couch just wasn't cutting it.
Just not. And the solution wasn't grabbing some soundproofing foam. No. According to the source, they rented a co-working space in a deconsecrated church.
A church? Seriously?
Yeah. The article points out the vaulted ceilings and stained glass added, quote, necessary drama.
Okay, I can see that. But the cost?
The cost. Yeah. $3,000 a week. The source says over 14 weeks, that hits the ledger for $42,000.
Wow.
Just for the sound of the room.
$42,000 just for ambiance. What's fascinating here is how quickly the focus shifts, right? From the physical space to the voices in it.
Mm-hmm.
The next issue identified in the source was NPCs sounding like, and I quote, regional managers at a suburban Applebee's.
I mean, we've all been there with NPC voices, but their fix was next level. The source says they hired dialect coaches. Not just any coaches, mind you. Former West End performers, people with PhDs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They apparently paid $1,200 each for 6 coaches. That's $7,200. And get this, one specialized in Dwarvish Cockney.
Dwarvish Cockney. Okay, that's specific. And probably not cheap.
$7,200 for voices.
But even that wasn't the end of it, was it?
Nope. The source describes commissioning a linguist to build a fully functional goblin language.
A whole language?
Yep. For $28,000.
$28,000 for Goblish.
Can you imagine? The article notes this meant even minor tavern scenes suddenly required subtitles and vocal warm-ups for anyone speaking it.
Subtitles for goblins. That's peak dedication, or maybe peak absurdity, like you said.
Right, so moving from sounds to sights. The source says they needed battle maps worthy of vision quests, describing a volcanic wasteland, apparently not immersive enough.
So what did they do? Rent a bigger printer?
No. The solution? Licensing drone footage of Iceland.
Drone footage, okay.
At $4,500 per setting for 7 different settings, that's another $31,500 just for, pretty pictures of real-world terrain.
$31K for landscape videos.
And you can't just project drone footage onto a regular table, can you? Not for this campaign.
Oh, no, of course not.
They procured a 4D holidable price tag, $47,000.
A $47,000 holidable. What does the 4D even mean there? Smell-o-vision.
The source doesn't specify the 4D part, but it does make sure to mention that pepperoni pizza was strictly banned from the vicinity of this thing.
Gotta protect the tech, I suppose. Authenticity must extend to table hygiene.
Apparently. The logic, as the article dryly puts it, became compelling, almost chilling in its rationality.
And that extended directly to player immersion, didn't it? Specifically, costumes.
Oh, the sartorial splendor described in the source. Get this. Each player received a $6,000 stipend.
$6,000. For costumes?
For custom garments, hand-selected by tailors specializing in historical wizard robes. For 5 players, that's $30,000 right there.
Before individual tailoring costs, I bet.
Exactly. The rogue apparently demanded real mithril thread, and the warlock found hats that cleverly doubled as spell components.
Naturally. And the wizard robes themselves. Any specifics?
Oh, yes. A specific tailoring cost of $3,200 each for 3 players. That's another $9,600.
Wow.
And a detail that really stuck with me. The source mentioned they were hand-washed in moon water.
Moon water. Okay, now they're just making stuff up.
Yeah.
Or are they?
With this article, who knows? It's these seemingly minor but incredibly expensive details that truly define this legendary campaign.
Meanwhile, the Dungeon Master's role, it escalated dramatically, didn't it, according to the source?
Yeah, from humble referee to, quote, ringmaster.
The DM needed a serious command center, a prep room with minimum specs that included a cryo-cooled server rack.
A cryo-cooled?
Yeah.
What exactly would that server rack do in a D&D game?
The article doesn't specify, but chilling it to cryogenic temperatures certainly sounds expensive and important, doesn't it?
It sounds like glorious overkill. And the DM had staff.
Oh, yeah. 3 AI dungeon designer assistants.
AI assistants
Yeah.
for the DM.
Yep.
Costing $6,000 a month each. So $18,000 a month just for digital help.
And the source adds that one of these AIs specialized specifically in sentient tavern furniture.
You're kidding. Sentient tavern furniture. AI.
That's what it says. A level of narrative support I hadn't previously considered necessary.
Me neither. We're there. Human consultants, too.
Of course. An emotional narrative consultant for $11,000 to coach players through dramatic betrayals.
11 grand for betrayal coaching.
Mm-hmm. And a freelance Jungian archetype analyst for $4,000.
A Jungian analyst. What did they find?
Well, the article notes the analyst's findings, stating they identified 4 players as the fool.
4 out of 5 players identified as the fool by a professional analyst. I wonder if the 5th was the DM.
Huh? Could be. And downtime activities weren't just narrated anymore, right?
Oh no, true method immersion was required. Meaning if a player wanted to blacksmith or mix potions, it meant booking the nearest Tuscan villa.
A Tuscan villa to mix potions.
According to the source, yeah. Which conveniently had an adjacent herbal garden and blacksmithing studio.
Of course it did. How much did that little excursion cost?
That real-world activity cost $6,800 per person for 5 players. Total, $34,000.
34 grand for downtime.
The source humorously notes the paladin actually forged a real broadsword there,
Naturally.
while also marinating chicken, apparently.
Yeah.
And the ranger developed a passion for artisanal soaps. These were considered necessary expenses for the art.
Necessary, yes, of course. And leveling up, not just ticking a box, I assume.
Definitely not. The article describes intensive, invitation-only boot camps run by stunt choreographers.
Stunt choreographers for leveling up.
This sounds incredible, right? Real sword fighting, shield bashing, even method death scenes.
Method death scenes. How much for that experience?
These boot camps cost $10,500 per person for 5 players. Adds up to $52,500.
$52,000 for Ellerkarm boot camps, basically.
Pretty much. And the source confirms, yes, this resulted in a sprained bard and a trip to urgent care. Realistic consequences.
You gotta commit to the role, I guess. Even the simulated familiar wasn't simple, was it?
Forget imagination. For the Wizards level 5 familiar, they hired a medieval falconer.
A medieval falconer.
Who apparently commuted weekly from Vancouver with a live, snowy owl.
No way! How much did the owl's commute cost?
The source quantifies this at $2,175 per trip for 8 trips. Total, $17,400.
17 grand for an owl mascot?
The consequences listed in the article: stained tunics and a general distrust of owls among the players.
Understandable.
And in a perfect, absurd twist, the source adds that the wizard was allergic to feathers.
Allergic to the $17,000 owl. Oh, that's rich.
The sock puppet stand-in, it says, often had more charisma than the fighter.
The sock puppet detail, it really sells the satire, doesn't it?
Totally.
So with all this escalating production value, the campaign inevitably attracted attention, right? The source mentions it caught the eye of the influencer crowd.
Of course it did. So streaming wasn't just Twitch. It was exclusive to a blockchain-gated NFT platform.
Oh boy. NFT-gated D&D.
You apparently needed an invite and a crypto token just to watch, and the tech for the players. Motion capture suits with dynamic LED face rigs.
Mocap suits.
You needed 3 separate apps just to view the stream, and fans were apparently demanding patches like toggle off barred soft lighting.
Toggle off barred lighting. Brilliant. And the bard's music, mentioned earlier, that became an issue.
A significant financial liability, according to the source. His demand for original compositions performed live by guest composers
Live composers every week.
was labeled a running joke and financial drain. Cost $1,800 a week for 13 weeks. Total $23,400.
23 grand for bard songs.
The source speculates one guest composer was actually a robot modeled after Andrew Lloyd Webber, nicknamed Webbot,
A webbot composer.
who would only accept payment in crypto. The article recounts one battle that was somehow underscored by a polka mashup.
A polka battle. Oh my God.
The source also raises this fundamental question the campaign seemed to ponder. Description versus simulation. Quote, "Can we really simulate what it's like to storm an airship if we just describe it?"
And the answer was?
Of course not. So they built a full-size airship set. It's suspended from a crane, complete with subwoofers.
A full-sized airship. Okay, how much did that cost?
That also cost $63,000.
$63,000 for one set piece.
Yep. The source includes a fantastic anecdote about a neighbor who, quote, felt the campaign's emotional journey through her floorboards thanks to those subwoofers.
I bet she did. Even random encounters weren't left to chance, were they?
No way. The solution, hiring a troupe of improv comedians.
Improv comedians for random encounters.
16 comedians at $550 each. Total, $8,800.
8 grand for jump scares.
Their job was to leap out of closets and stairwells, pelting players with rubber arrows and philosophical riddles.
Philosophical riddles from improv ninjas.
Okay. The source shares the legendary story of the barbarian being tackled mid-toilet break by a halfling dressed as a dire raccoon.
Tackled on the toilet.
Oh dear. And yes, the article confirms there was a rare mimic closet that charged double for the encounter.
The mimic charged double, of course it did. This level of orchestrated chaos. It must have required a surprising amount of bureaucracy, right? According to the source.
The campaign needed standing legal counsel.
Legal counsel for D&D, specializing in what?
Specializing in, quote, interplanar intellectual property law and spellcasting copyrights.
Interplanar IP law. That's a niche cost.
$1,500. The article adds the lawyer even attempted to unionize the goblins.
Unionizing the goblins. That's amazing. A plot hook right there.
Totally. And to maintain continuity, because with this much going on, things must get complicated.
Yeah, I bet.
They hired a team of 3 full-time continuity editors.
Continuity editors.
At $7,800 per editor, totaling $23,400. The source says they operated a massive timeline chart on the 4D holodoble.
On the holodoble.
Yeah, with red lights flashing for plot overlaps. They apparently kept meticulous notes on every single side quest chicken. Gotta track those chickens, it's vital.
Players also had to sign non-disclosure agreements before every session.
NDAs for D&D sessions. How much did that add?
Reviewed by outside counsel, naturally. The source says this cost $45 per session for 32 sessions, a total of $1,440.
Okay, relatively cheap compared to everything else. Any funny clauses?
Apparently. Clauses against neckbeard leaks and emotional theft.
Emotional theft clauses.
Yeah.
Brilliant. What about metagaming? Just frowned upon.
Oh no. The source says it carried an $800 fine.
An $800 fine for metagaming?
Yep. Infractions were appealed before a tribunal, consisting of the DM, the legal advisor, and the improv comedians.
The improv comedians were on the tribunal.
Sometimes requiring repeat performances of the infraction with cameras rolling.
Wow. And perhaps the most mundane yet hilarious bureaucratic hurdle.
Tax law. The source states that looting a chest required filing a 1099 form with an in-house accountant.
A 1099. For looting. For listeners maybe not in the U.S., that's a tax form for miscellaneous income. Exactly. The barbarian, predictably, apparently tried to deduct a +1 great tax as a capital loss.
Oh, barbarian. How did that go?
Resulted in another $800 fine.
Tax implications of looting. Rarely covered in the player's handbook, are they?
Not usually. The campaign even went so far as to hire atmospheric extras.
Extras, like background actors.
From a local talent agency, yeah, for village scenes. 22 extras at $375 each, totaling $8,250. Costume peasants, bartenders, and, yes, secret cows.
Secret cows as extras, okay.
The twist, according to the source, about half the extras thought they were filming a gritty medieval soap opera.
What? Seriously?
Yeah. This led to incredible dramatic overheard dialogue and background subplots nobody planned for. The article notes they eventually threatened to unionize and demand a spin-off show.
A spin-off for the extras. Playing D&D truly became a matter of contract negotiation, huh?
Seems like it. And the grand finale,
Yeah.
just as over the top, I assume.
Oh, definitely. The source says the final boss fight took place on a stage before a live audience.
A live audience.
200 hand-selected fans.
Hand-selected fans. Flown in.
Apparently flown in via private shuttle and treated to Michelin-starred catering.
Michelin-starred catering at a D&D game.
We're talking roasted pheasant, frothy ale in pewter flagons. That catering alone costs $325 per guest for 200 guests, totaling $65,000. 65 grand for the finale snacks. Wow. What were the audience rules?
They were apparently required to stay in character. The source dryly notes that Ford tried to cast minor illusion before dessert.
Casting spells at the catering staff.
Yeah.
Classy. So after all that, the article reflects on, like, the point of it all, right? Tallying gains versus losses.
Yeah, finding that genuine moments of awe were kind of hard to spot beneath the sheer volume of invoices and forms. Emotionally resonant moments were often ruined by practical issues.
Like what?
Like the DM's lapel mic picking up the wizard's nutritionist's gastric tumult.
Oh, no.
During a pivotal sibling reconciliation scene, the source says moments were reshot, lighting calibrated, live pianists composing on the spot to fix things.
Reshoots for D&D moments. The accountant's reported remark seems perfect here. Sibling reconciliation is over budget this quarter.
That perfectly encapsulates the entire endeavor, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The deepest narrative triumphs became scheduled and curated events.
Right.
Yet amidst all this absolute chaos and financial outlay, the source says there were still fleeting glimpses of real camaraderie. The pure joy of rolling a crit with Iceland drone footage projected in front of you.
Yeah.
And the sheer adrenaline of arguing interplanar copyright law with a man in full wizard robes. The article concludes that it was almost worth it.
Almost. That's the key word. The source then shifts to this sharp, satirical conclusion, right? Arguing that D&D in this context became about scalable intellectual property.
Yeah, and production value that demands respect. Chasing trophies, invoices, trademarks,
Yeah.
rather than just, fun.
It offers these truly inspired satirical suggestions for further escalation, too.
Oh yeah, like what?
Replacing dice with biometric sensors, post-game potions delivered by drone,
Drone potions.
therapy goats for post-boss fight trauma, and mandatory Bali decompression retreats.
Therapy goats. I kind of like that one. But this is a crucial detail the source makes explicit, right? We need to stress this.
Absolutely critical. It states clearly that this wasn't a real campaign, these weren't real people.
It was just, quote, real dumb jokes.
Exactly. Which confirms the playful, satirical nature of the entire piece we've been discussing. It's a thought experiment, a piece of humor.
Definitely. And to really drive home the scale and the humor, we should quickly hit a few highlights from that reimbursement request table the source included.
Oh yeah, the ledger, which totals up to $508,990.
Just over $500,000. So there's that $28,000 line item for the functional goblin language.
With the comment that all profanity was rigorously peer-reviewed, naturally.
The $47,000 for the 4D holidable.
With the very important comment, pepperoni pizza banned from vicinity.
The note on the personal wizard robe tailoring.
Hand-washed in moon water, of course.
The $6,000 for the AI dungeon designer assistant.
Specializing in sentient tavern furniture, a true necessity.
And the $4,000 for the Jungian analyst.
Just a note identifying 4 players as the fool. Still funny.
The Tuscan Villa, booking for $34,000.
The accompanying comment, no Wi-Fi, an outrage.
And finally, that massive $65,000 for the live finale catering.
Simply noted as ale and truffle risotto night.
These details really hammer home the delightful absurdity the source describes, don't they?
They certainly paint a vivid, if completely exaggerated, picture of what happens when you chase production value above all else in a game designed for imagination.
So we've taken a wild $500,000 journey through the campaign described in this LitRPG Reads article.
And it genuinely makes you pause, doesn't it? And playfully reflect on that core question. Does spending this kind of money actually make a meaningful difference at the table?
Yeah.
The source strongly suggests that instead of deeper immersion, it might just introduce, bureaucracy, curation, unexpected costs, and pure chaos.
Replacing spontaneity with a production schedule, maybe. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Perhaps these outrageous, hilarious details really highlight the fundamental magic that already makes D&D great.
Like the collaborative storytelling, the shared imagination.
The simple joy of rolling dice with friends. And maybe it shows how external bells and whistles taken to this kind of extreme can actually get in the way.
Or maybe, just maybe, it sparks some, hopefully less expensive, ideas for adding unique elements to your own games.
Could be.
Building on the source's satirical conclusion about D&D becoming scalable intellectual property, here's a final thought for you to consider.
Okay.
In an age of streaming, influencers, and increasingly high-production online campaigns, can the simple magic of friends, dice, and imagination truly compete on their own terms? Or is the future of TTRPGs inevitably headed towards needing more and more production value just to be heard?
That's a really interesting question to mull over next time you're rolling dice. Absolutely. And hey, we want to give a huge, warm shout out to LitRPG Reads and the author Amir Barakat, known online as Bardic Lore,
Yeah, great handle.
whose incredibly funny article provided all the fascinating source material for this deep dive. And of course, to Paul Bello, a fine fellow indeed.
Absolutely. Their work certainly gave us a lot to unpack and definitely a lot to laugh about today.
It really did. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. What was the funniest detail to you? Share your own wildest campaign stories, or just tell us what you think of chasing production value in TTRPGs, wherever you're engaging with this deep dive.
Yeah, let us know.
We'll see you next time.